Managing inventory and traceability from harvest to shipment. RedLine Solutions was the winner of the Frost & Sullivan Produce Traceability Company of the Year for North America in 2014. Let's get why traceability matters. Foodborne illnesses in the United States sicken 1 in 6 Americans every year. 128 require hospitalization and 3,000 die. Salmonella is the most common issue in foodborne illnesses, with approximately 22% of the illnesses coming from produce. In the U.S., roughly each person consumes about 350 pounds of produce per year, and if we look at the recalls, in 2006 we had the big one, which was the spinach E. coli issue out of Salinas. In 2008 we had a large recall of tomatoes that were actually later attributed to peppers. 2009 we had a large recall on peanut butter products across the U.S. 2011 there was a large sprout contamination issue of E. coli that affected almost 3,800 people and 45 who died. And then in 2011 here in the U.S. we had a U.S. Listeria problem with cantaloupe where 147 people got sick and 33 died. So if we break this down, really 22% of all the foodborne illnesses are produce related. Roughly 16% of those are identified with handling after leaving the farm, and 6.1 are associated with the growing, packing, and shipment. That means there's roughly 2.9 million people per year who are getting sick from eating produce in the U.S. So whole chain traceability is really managing that traceability all the way from the place where the product was harvested to where it was packed, and all points in between to the retailer and food service handler. PTI requirements require that you record your source and your source lots of all inbound, tie those source lots to your pack lots, label your cases with a G10 and lot number, and record that information on outbound. You must be able to provide that information in an electronic format, and we're going to look at those labels now. The basic data elements are the G10, the batch lot number, and the PTI voice pick code, but in commerce you'll often see the variety, the commodity, and the size listed as well. The hybrid pallet tag then includes the company name and the SSCC for the advanced ship notice, as well as the human readable and barcode information about all the contents, including the number of pallets on or labels on that specific pallet. At a 30,000-foot level, the case has the G10 and the lot number, and that information follows that product all the way through from the primary producer and packer through to the retail store or food service operator. From a retailer perspective in the U.S., Walmart, Publix, Stater Brothers, and the Del Hayes companies are all requiring PTI today. In 2014, Whole Foods is coming online, and there are several others that are pending. So if we look at inventory and traceability at harvest, we have to first ask the type of harvest. Field packed items include lettuce, broccoli, and cauliflower, where the case is actually packed and sealed in the field. Shed pack items are more like apples, stone fruit, potatoes, and these are things that are typically harvested and packed in a packing shed. In the field pack items, traceability labels are applied in the field. That information is then captured to the pallets as it's built, and then that information can be transferred to the office in advance of the product arriving. In a shed pack item for traceability, we're often pre-printing the bin tags and applying those at the time of harvest, and then tying that source lot and source back to those specific bins when they come into the facility. Again, on the field packed items, because the traceability label is already on the box and that information is linked to the pallet, you simply have to scan the pallet ID to identify what is being received and either accept it or note any corrections. You can then import the pallets into the host, which is going to reduce your receiving time and give you also that all-critical capture of your cut-to-cool times. For shed pack items, again, you can scan those bin tags upon receipt. Those bins then are associated with that truckload and are tied back to the source and the source lot. That inventory then and that source lot information ties back to the container, whether it's a bin tote room, and we'll tie that source and source lot to that container so that when it's packed, you can actually identify and validate that you have the right source and the right source lot. On your pack out control, because you've identified the source and the source lot going into the pack run, you simply have to identify what are the pack styles that you're running, and those will pull in the G10s that are going to be part of that run. The cases are then labeled as they're packed, and the labeling method can vary by the type of line, whether it's a packing table, a single production line, or a multi-product production line. So on the single line here, it looks something like this, and on the multiple line, it looks like this, which is I've got multiple products coming down the line, converging onto a single line, and then as I'm doing the box identification, I have to be able to recognize what exactly is in that box before I label it in that multi-pack environment. We can use a pack code to do that, where there's a sticker put on that is tied to a specific pack style, or we can actually use vision, and in a vision environment, what we're doing is we're actually looking for graphical elements, including perhaps a logo or a checkbox that's identifying the style here that you see on this picture. The printer applicator itself senses the box when it arrives. It looks up the data from the software, and then it will actually print and apply the label onto the carton. If you look at capturing that information, then once it's been labeled, you can actually use a scanner to read that information in the palletization area, scanning a case that will then drive the printing of the pallet tag. In the cooler, we look at this as the key processes include receiving, put away, truck inspections, your picking and staging, and then the loading and shipping, as well as inventory or holdover count. It all starts with the pallet tag, and the pallet tag is actually applied before the product goes into the cooler at receiving, whether this is something that you have applied at the end of a pack line or it's something that you purchased in. The next area we want to look at then is actually the real-time stock locator, and that is tracking each pallet's location as it's put away. Any changes to the pallets are actually going to be captured when we're doing either a split, a consolidation of the pallet, and generally when we do either of those, we're going to print a new pallet tag to have the updated contents. When we shift our attention to picking and staging, what we're able to do is to actually tie the sales order to an electronic order so that the forklift driver can be directed to the proper location to pull the product. This speeds up the picking and the staging. By scanning the product before moving, it also eliminates any of the potential shipping errors that would result from pulling the wrong product. Another thing is that all of the changes to the order can be communicated to the operator in real time, so if there's been an increase or decrease in the quantity or there's been another request, they can be fulfilled. The last part of this then is looking at the electronic truck inspection, and the truck inspection basically just allows us to capture for that truck on a specific order, was it cold, clean, damage-free, and odor-free, and if not, define what the corrective actions are. When we get to loading and shipping, again, we're validating the items that we're fulfilling against the sales order. Assuming that those are the correct items, they get recorded against that sales order. All the case traceability information has been tied to the pallet already, and then when we ship the pallet, we actually relieve the inventory. Here's an example of a traceability report showing a specific lot number and all the customers who had received that. So if there had been an inquiry on that lot number, we could quickly track that for you. And really, this kind of wraps up with how our different products fit into this. RedLine has a suite of products that manage everything from the harvest to the packing environment to the cooler, as well as basic PTI labeling. All of the three here in our field packing and cooler manage inventory and traceability from harvest to shipment. They enable PTI case and pallet label printing. They're easy to use, they're barcode driven, and they're standards based. We use mobile scanners which communicate over Wi-Fi within the facility or in the field environment, cellular, and we provide a complete audit log of all transactions. We manage your internal traceability information, and we publish that information to external systems, and our open architecture allows us to do integration. In summary, automation helps manage inventory and traceability. It ties your source lots to the pack lots to the pallets, and the pallets to the shipments. And traceability can be used not only to find your product when there's a problem, but more importantly to clear your product if there is a recall in your commodity. RedLine Solutions helps our customers manage inventory and traceability from harvest to shipment. So contact us about our award-winning solutions today. If you need more information or would like to follow up with us, here's our phone numbers and our contact information. Thank you very much.